Recording in progress.
Welcome to Find Your Next Six-Figure Infill Deal Call. We do this live every Friday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, where we cover the best deals of the week and the infill deal of the week. Today we have a pretty unique property. We haven't done one of these before, where it's a mixed-use project that looks pretty outstanding. So we'll get into that. First, we'll do an introduction of my background, and then we'll cover the details of how to get full access to our infill deal list, and then we'll cover what our 6 figures in 36 months or less infill deal offer is. And then along with that, the profit guarantee with that, and then we'll go into the deal of the week plus other deals. So just an introduction to myself. My name is Zach Matson. I'm a developer and builder here in Boise. I got started in real estate back in 2013, house hacking, buying duplexes, living in one side, fixing up the other. And then in 2016, I went into full-time flipping. And then by 2019 and 2020, I got into development full-time. And then that's where I really saw an opportunity to grow and scale my business. And so since then, I've just been doing my own deals. And then last year, we started doing deals for other people where we were realizing there's a ton of opportunity on the market that, most people don't understand development, and most of these deals aren't getting bought up. So we saw a huge opportunity to both, bring in revenue for our business, but also to help individual investors capitalize on the development market, and specifically infill development. So we're going to cover a little bit of the details on how to get full access to our infill deal list. So we give access to both realtors and investors. So if you're a realtor, we just have you watch or attend in person our 2-part course on infill development and then our construction process. We also have those on Zoom replays that we can send you. And then we also have a third session that's a Zoom session that covers how to look at and analyze the deal list that we give you access to. Then we just have you sign an agreement stating that if you're going to bring your or use our strategies with your clients, that you'll bring those clients to us early on in the process so that we can help you the best with getting projects under contract and making sure that we can do our due diligence on it. And then a bonus offer that we have is we offer free marketing campaigns provided by us that you can co-brand with us. So we have our weekly deal list that we send out. We also have additional marketing materials that you can co-brand with us as well. And then if you're an investor, so we have we have access for investors as well. So if you already have a realtor that you work with, you can bring them onto the list as well. We just require that they go through the training that we mentioned previously. If you don't have a realtor, we can connect you with somebody that's already been through the training and already has access to the list. So that's a great way to connect with a realtor that kind of understands infill development and has been through the training with us. And then we have you also watch the same 3 sessions on infill development, building our building process, and then how to look at and analyze the list that you have access to. And then we just have you sign an agreement stating that if you're going to use our systems and processes, that you'll use us as the contractor on that. And then also have you sign an NDA with that as well. Okay, and then a couple of the ways that we make money. So we're obviously a general contractor, so we do the general contracting on the horizontal and vertical construction. That's the main way we make money on our deals that we present to buyers. We also charge a consulting fee. It's a one-time fee at purchase, and that covers our time and efforts into putting this all together, and then also the due diligence that we go through. We have a 19-page due diligence checklist we've created on every property that we go through with you. We do about 90% of it while you're under contract, and then you do about 10% of it. And then we also so we do the entitlements as well. So we're fully vertically integrated. So we do the entitlements, the horizontal and the vertical build. The entitlements, we just manage that process, and then we just charge you an hourly rate for our services for that. And then we have the team in place, like all the civil engineers and architects and all that team that will do a big chunk of that work on the design and engineering side. Okay, and then getting into our deal offer. So we have our 6 figures in 36 months or less infill deal offer. So this is every deal that we do, we give you this offer. So the reason why we created this, as I kind of mentioned, is we realized there's a lot of opportunity in the market, but then we also realized that, most people, most investors don't understand development. It's kind of a high bar to get into if you don't know what you're doing, and there's not a lot of information out there. So we basically created this um, kind of keeping in mind that, obviously investors don't want to lose money on a bad deal. And then also that most people don't understand the process and they don't want to make a mistake learning it. They're also worried about projects dragging on too long or contractors cutting corners. And then also another big thing is just not having full control or visibility into a project. A lot of people invest in syndications where they basically have a little bit of ownership, but they have no decision-making control. So we created this system specifically so that individual investors can have full ownership of a deal. They can also, partner with, other people as well, but we set it up so that investors can have full ownership of the deal and they're not investing in somebody else's deal. So the core components of this, so we offer expert deal underwriting. So we vet, analyze, and underwrite every infill deal on our list. So we don't just estimate the numbers, we've actually been through these projects. And so we've understand the costs that go along with them. We also offer and negotiation support. So we guide you and your realtor on how to structure and present offers. So when you're buying just a typical home, most of the time that's a pretty straightforward process, and it's kind of a system now where you typically have 5 days of inspection period, and then you have 30 days or 45 days to close. Well, land deals are a little bit different, so there's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot more due diligence that goes into it. So we basically help you and your agent understand how that works, and then what you need to do to get that offer under contract that's in that property under contract that's in terms that are favorable for all the parties. We also offer a step-by-step due diligence. So again, we have that 19-page due diligence checklist. So we give you a copy of that in a shared drive file that you can actually follow along with us as we go through due diligence. So you can see anything that comes up that's of concern or that we're working around. And then you do about 10% of that. Usually that comes down to financing. And then if there's an existing structure, working with how you're going to property manage that. If there is an existing house on the property or an existing structure, we can also renovate that existing structure if it's needed. On our splits where there's an existing home on that, I would say about 30 to 40% of the time, the house needs a renovation in order for it to be rentable or rent ready, or to maximize the rent. So we can handle that side of things as well. And then we do the entitlement management. So we manage the entitlements process with the city and then all the professionals. And then, as I mentioned previously, so we're the general contractor. So we do the horizontal and vertical construction. So the horizontal is all the stuff that's at ground level or below. So that's all the utilities and water, sewer, that kind of thing. Then the vertical construction is from foundation on up. And then some of the bonus offers that we give you. So when you're part of our system here, we give you the ultimate guide introduction to to infill development. We're also going to give you that 19-page due diligence checklist when you have a property under contract, so you can follow along with us as we go through that due diligence. And then before the end of due diligence, we're going to provide you with the final 1-page underwriting worksheet and that's what we base our guarantee on. So this acts as the final go or no go underwriting for you to base your final investment decision on. Number 4 is we're going to provide you with our entitlements process checklist and projected timelines. So that's something that we'll give you once you close, and then it'll project out what the steps are to get it entitled and what those anticipated timelines are. Then we're going to provide you with our construction process and inspection checklist. So once we start construction, we're going to give you that checklist and process. So you can follow along with us on that. And then on top of that, we do a third-party new home inspection report for every build that we do, and that's inspected at 4 key phases. So we do that framing and rough-in, so you can see what's behind the walls as it's being constructed. So if any mistakes come up there, we show you what happened and how it was repaired or fixed, made right. And then we do the drywall and then interior and exterior finishes and then the final inspection. Sometimes that final inspection ends up being 2 reports because we'll have maybe a few final things on that last inspection that need to get corrected. And then once those are corrected, we will get a final report to show you that the house is free of any defects. And then number 7, so starting here, I think next week we're going to do our first one where we do our monthly progress call. So we're going to review all of our current projects that we have in process. And so this is going to be open to the public, where if you already bought a deal or if you're thinking about buying a deal or just curious, we're going to basically go through each project that we're working on and then any kind of challenges that came up. Any kind of progress that was made, that kind of thing. So we just kind of pull back the curtains. This is gives kind of an update for the people that own those projects, but also anybody that's curious on how that process works, that's interested. Number 8, so this is where we get into our guarantee. So we are going to provide you with our entitlements guarantee. So that's that we guarantee that if you don't achieve the unit count that we underwrite at that final underwriting, we're going to waive our next fee or apply that fee towards the development costs. So for example, we're doing a mixed use condo project today. So we are projecting that we can do 45 apartment units or condo units and then 3 commercial space units. And so when we're finally done with underwriting, or our final underwriting on that, once we're done with due diligence, if it ends up being 48, we're going to guarantee that number 48. Now, if it gets through entitlements and we lose 1 unit or lose 2 units, we're actually going to take whatever fee that we charged you at closing, and we're going to apply that towards the building costs. Or if you sell it and move on to the next project, we'll apply that towards the next project. Then number 9, so we're going to provide you with our underwriting guarantee. This is where our offer guarantee comes, or sorry, our profit guarantee comes in. So what we are doing is we guarantee that if the project doesn't meet at least 100% of the projected profit at final underwriting, we're going to refund you up until it does. So on single and double lot splits, that's up to 50,000 per deal total. And then up to 10 units or more, that's 20,000 per unit. So on this deal, it'll be a total guarantee of 200,000 that we're going to back up. Even though on this one, the projected profit is higher, we don't guarantee that entire amount. We just guarantee 20,000 per unit up to 10. So this one would be an extra 200,000. So essentially, if we are saying you're going to make 2 million, but it falls short to 1.8 million, we're going to kick in that extra 200,000 to get you up to that 2 million that we originally projected. Now, we do go into these really conservative. So our whole goal is to underpromise and overdeliver. So we're going to be really conservative on all of our projection numbers, and we're going to cover that in this deal on how we are looking at it and how we feel it's conservative, and your upside is actually higher. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the deal of the week this week. Pull up my share screen here. Okay, this week's deal is in Northwest Boise. It's actually right along State Street. So this has been on the market for a while. It's basically just a raw land deal. So previous to this, I haven't been tracking multifamily because so last year I analyzed I think 3 or 4 different multifamily apartment complexes ranging from 12 units all the way up to 50. And none of them made any sense to build. Even on deals where I could split the land off and essentially get the land for free and build, they still didn't make sense. The reason why that is because interest rates are just too high right now, along with the building costs. So even if you get the land for free and you build an apartment complex, and this was even when I was analyzing it at my cost, so not even adding in like any kind of me making money on the build, the apartment projects just didn't pencil without bringing in, millions of dollars in capital and then having cap rates that just didn't make much sense. So there's still people doing apartment deals, very little, honestly. Like the past couple of years, the new apartment starts has been pretty low in the Boise area and really probably across the country. Now, there's been a lot of apartments being built in Boise, but they were started before the interest rates started increasing. So I've been kind of holding off a little bit on analyzing some of these multifamily units. Now I started, so I looked at this, and I do know from last year, so I'm partnered on a project that we originally analyzed it as apartment complex, and then we kind of switched gears when we knew that the apartments weren't going to work to doing a condo project. So it's actually almost identical to this property that we're gonna present here. It's on a little bit smaller lot. But really similar. So part of the confidence I have in this is just we've already actually kind of done layouts on this with unit count and parking. I think the parking is actually a little bit easier on this one, and some of the other things as well. Uh, so yeah, so this deal we analyzed as a condo project because as an apartment, it doesn't really make sense with interest rates. The interest rates really, like for new construction, you almost have to get into the fours for it to make sense typically, unless you're just going to finance it all cash or mostly cash. Um, okay, so this is a half an acre, a little bit over half an acre, along State Street. So this is State Street right here on the map, and it's directly across the street from the golf course over here. So I forget what this golf course is called now. It used to be called Plantation Golf Course, then they changed the name here a couple of years ago. But this is just a couple miles west of downtown Boise. The foothills are a couple miles north of here. So really great location. There's all this is shopping over here. This is close to Garden City, directly across the river. Actually, this is Garden City right here. So directly across the street is technically Garden City, and then this is the river here. This area here is the new park at Expo, Idaho. So this is less than a mile away. You have the big new 80-acre park at Expo, Idaho. And you can access this either via the green belt across the street, get over to the green belt, or via car by going up to Glenwood here and then crossing the river and then over here. So just a couple mile drive or less than a mile to walk or bike over to this area here. And then we actually had some pretty good comparables as well for condo units that were sold in this Lake Harbor. So Lake Harbor Lane over here, there's an apartment complex that they actually converted at least some of the units into condos. So individual for sale units. So we actually were able to pull up comps based on that. So that was actually good there. And that's where we came in conservatively too, because we were comparing our prices uh to the prices of those like units that were 20 plus years old. So I think we could probably list these for sale about 10% higher, but we go in really conservatively. So we have a total investor profit. So this is actually lower than the original when I originally sent out. When I re-looked at this briefly after I sent out the email, I realized that I undercounted the parking spaces and the square footage, so I had to adjust that. So the profit is actually a little bit lower than what I sent out originally. But then at the same time, I think this is super conservative. So I think our numbers are actually going to be much better than this and probably closer to what I originally sent out. But with this capital invested and the return, that's actually an excellent return. And this is actually factoring in selling all the condo units, but then not selling the commercial space. So you'd actually keep the commercial space and then get all your money back, profit this much. And then you would also have the commercial space free and clear that you'd own. So that's about we factor in about 3,600 square feet of commercial space. And then with the going market rates, probably even conservatively, that's probably about $4,500 a month in free cash flow. So this is your overall ROI on that project. We anticipate it take 2.5 years to complete. So what I would recommend on any deals like this is actually not closing until we have some kind of approval from the city. We can cover that more in depth if somebody is interested, but typically on this type of deal, you don't want to close until you have an approval. So you want to get the plans kind of roughly approved, not the full civil plans, but at least the site plan and everything approved through planning and zoning and then city council. Then once the project is approved, then you can close and then you do all the civil engineering. You spend a little bit more money in that and then and all the the official architecture plans to get permitted. So then once that permitting process is going to take typically 2 to 3 months on commercial. And then the construction is going to be about 18 months. And then after that, so we factor in up to a year to sell. So that's where we get in this 2.5 years versus 2 years. So because we're selling the individual condo units, we would obviously try to pre-sell as many as possible. But when you're talking about, this would be 45 units, it'll take a little bit to sell. Now, these are all projected. So they'd be the price comparables that I have. These are all 350 or less. So really in that affordable range. And that's from 1 to 3 bedrooms. So then that's your annual return here. This number here is if you sell all but one unit, the capital that you would get back. So you could keep one condo unit, still get your capital back, still make a profit, and you'd still own the one unit plus the 3 commercial spaces. And then this would be your total equity remaining in that deal before selling all of them. So the reason why this number and this number is so different is because you have selling costs in each one of those units. So that's not true profit. That's just if you kept them. These numbers here, we're not going to cover this super in depth, but this is if you refinance the whole construction project and you did it as a multifamily. So we did underwrite this as multifamily. If you just kept it as a multifamily, the reason why this doesn't work is because now, unless I will caveat that with saying because a lot of deals, like the bank might finance, 60% of this, 70% of it, and you bring in extra capital and then it does cash flow. But we don't like to look at those that way. We like to look at this as, okay, if we just refinance all the debt into long-term debt, what does that look like? So at debt rates of 6.5%, this might be a little bit lower now, but we're going to be conservative there. You have the monthly payment is almost $75,000 when factoring in property tax and insurance. And then you're only getting about 67,000 a month in rents. And that is for all the units plus the commercial. So you're actually negative cash flow just from the very beginning by refinancing that debt at this amount. Now, if this got down to 4.5%, for example, now you're positive cash flow on this side, but it's still not even enough to get you into the once you start paying for your property management and maintenance costs and everything. So again, these numbers aren't great for new construction. Now they would improve over time, but that basically kind of gives you an idea like where you need to be at for something to make sense. And again, this would cash flow if you brought in more cash, but we just look at it as refinancing that debt. Okay, so we have the total built living square footage. This is actually living square footage plus commercial space. We have a 3,600 square feet of commercial space, and then 40,000 square feet of living space. And then 10,000, a little over 10,000 square feet of parking. So we need about 70 parking spaces, maybe less. So we analyzed that with 2 and 3 bedroom. We'd probably mix in some 1 bedrooms there to get the parking lower, because I think it'd be a little tricky to get 70 spaces in there. But I think by throwing in some 1 bedrooms in there, we can get those spaces a little bit lower, and then be able to fit as many units. So this is, by the way, this is like a really high level analysis. We don't go, it takes, tens of hours, if not hundreds of hours to really fully vet these. But this is a really good, high level, okay, total square footage. We looked at the parking requirements, how many, the setbacks, how, this would be 6 levels. So you'd have the first story would be partial commercial space fronting State Street, probably, maybe a little bit facing Kessinger. And then the rest of the first story and then the second floor would be parking. And then you'd have floors 3 through 6 would be the living space. So that's, anyway, so this is a high level based on construction costs. So this is construction cost per unit. And then you have your total with the land costs in there as well. And then your the loan costs. And this is factoring in basically the loan for 2 years. So this is probably even pretty like really conservative on this end as well. And then the sale price, so we have 45 units for sale. So we did just on this one, we did 35 units at 2 bedroom at 270, which is what the 2 bedroom units at the Lake Harbor project sold for. And those are, those apartments or condos were 20, 30 years old, maybe probably closer to 30 years old. So I think this would probably be closer to 300,000, if not a little bit more, especially if you get to the upper floors and facing the foothills. I think you get some. This is probably a base level price, and then those better view units would get even a little bit more. And then we'd have some 3 bedroom units in there for a little bit higher. But everything we analyze is 350 or less, which is a fantastic price point. And honestly, I think Boise itself is kind of underrepresented in condos for sale. We don't really see them very often. There was a project downtown that sold. It's been a few years now. It was probably 2019, I think, that was built and sold. And those back then were selling for like $600,000 for like little 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units. So I think this market is underrepresented right now, and it's a good opportunity where there is, multifamily doesn't necessarily make sense to build and keep, but you can build it, sell the individual units. And then you can even, the nice thing with condos is if you wanted to keep, 10 units as rentals, you could do that too. So once you're down to, owning 10, you can refinance those and they're probably going to cash flow pretty well. So this is your per unit profit on this one. Again, I think this is really conservative. I think realistically, this is probably 20% higher, if not more than that. And then, yeah, just going back into the total debt. This is the vertical cost plus interest. So when you get into something like this, your leverage, you can leverage typically the interest in there as well, as long as the numbers look good to the bank. And if we need to do something on our end where we, take some of the profits at the end or do some kind of partnership to lower that to make sure that you're not paying interest out of pocket, we can look at that as well. Okay, anybody that's on the call have any questions about this deal specifically? Okay. I did so eventually I'm going to kind of finish analyzing these are more mixed use slash multifamily projects. Now that I've kind of done this multifamily again and realized multifamily doesn't really work. If these are multifamily only, I'm not typically going to analyze them right now, just because it's not really making sense to build and then refinance, unless you're basically doing it most of it cash or big chunk of cash. And most of the deals we do, we're trying to do it so that you minimize your cash out of pocket, and can really use the leverage of financing. One thing, there's 2 properties that came on the market this week, that were like very interesting, that they're a little bit, I guess I would call them kind of infill, but they're a little bit larger properties. These are 10-acre properties out in South Boise. So actually one of our realtors that has access to our list here has this property. And I talked to her about it this morning. It sounds like CBH actually has an offer in already on this. This was just came to the market 2 days ago. But I was thinking about presenting this to somebody because this actually provides a unique opportunity. So there's a fairly large house. I think it's 2,600 square feet. Yeah, 2,688 square feet sitting on 10 acres. So there's some value in that house. The existing house is worth probably about 500,000, but then there's a second parcel that's land only. That I actually looked into it a little bit. I'd have to do some more research, but you can finance land with like a agricultural loan. So there is a possibility to finance basically that 10 acres to reduce your out-of-pocket expenses. Now, usually what I say is most of the time you just want to buy that cash. But if somebody wanted to do less capital, this is actually factoring in using that agricultural loan. So theoretically, you could be in this for a little over $500,000. What's kind of unique about this is because that house sits on its own separate parcel. I would actually do a lot line adjustment to reduce the size down to what you can develop in the other 10 acres fix up this house because it does need some work, but it's not a bunch. It's basically just cosmetic. So put in 50,000 to do like your carpet and or your flooring and paint and fixtures. And then this house is actually probably closer to 750,000 if it's like fully fixed up and nice. So essentially it's a house flip. You can do that. You can do the fix up of the house while you're doing the lot line adjustment, which is just an administrative process that takes maybe a total of 6 months, if that. And then you'd actually profit on that existing house by selling it. And now you're in the land for less money. And then you can even use this profit reserves in your down payment. So this is actually where was that? Right here. This is the cash that you'd get back from that sale. So that's profit plus your original down payment for that parcel. And you can have this as your capital reserves for the rest of this entitlements and development. So essentially, this is factoring in getting this 267 back. Normally this is I don't factor that in, but because you can sell the house off quicker, so this would actually be a total of like 800,000, but factoring in 800 minus this 267, that's where this total number comes in. So yeah, you can use this for the reserves to get it entitled, and then once it's entitled, you can do the horizontal and develop and vertical. And then again on this, you could do this would be in phases because it's probably 80 houses, maybe a little bit more. And not to get it too far into the weeds here, but this is actually a great location. The reason why CBH was interested in it is because they have a development like literally a couple lots over. There's another Hubble Homes development directly to the east. Right now it's just land, and then there's another land development directly to the south that just got approved. So tons of development, and the water and sewer is just up the road. It basically almost touches this property, so it's actually a great location for this to develop this. And then you do this in phases. So you put the infrastructure in a portion of it, build out those. Ideally, you set it up so that once you're done with that, that pays off. So once you build the first, let's say it's the first 10 houses or whatever, you build those 10 houses and the infrastructure and then sell those 10 houses. And ideally that gets you to a point where your all your debt is paid off. And then the rest of it is really just, basically building and selling or, paying, getting debt on the infrastructure and vertical for each build or each phase, and then paying it off and profiting each time. And then eventually you can take, if you want to keep rolling that in, you can basically take those profits and not use any debt, and then your profit on each one goes up. So yeah, so kind of an interesting deal here. And then this one below it, so this one might go pending unless somebody wants to throw in an offer. I did talk to the listing agent about maybe having the landowner or the seller, sell the existing house and then maybe do a carry on the land, at least through until it gets entitled. But it sounds like she would most likely want to just sell it outright. But that could be an option. I haven't fully analyzed this, but this is actually a really similar deal. This actually has a little bit more opportunity um, to bring in income while you're going through the entitlements. There's a total of two houses and then two mobile homes on this property. I think they're all rented or rentable. So I'm going to spend some time probably in the next week analyzing this more fully, unless it goes pending. But this actually has some unique possibilities too. It's a little bit lower acreage, but there's more structures on it that I think would pay off your or keep you pretty close to break even on your monthly payments if you can rent those while you're getting through entitlement. So that'll be coming down the pipeline. I looked at this deal as well earlier this week. This is on a larger home sitting on an acre. I thought originally this looked pretty good, but they're actually asking a premium on the land over the house price. And anytime you get into that, depending on where it's at in town, so that's basically like an extra 45,000 per lot. Well, you still have to entitle it. You still have to put in the developments. And so the development costs on this per lot are actually kind of high because you only can do only 4, just the way it's situated. Normally, I would look to try to do 8, but there's just not a good way forward on that. But if you could do 8, you could get those priced lower, and then all of a sudden this looks a little bit better. But this right now just doesn't pencil out very well. Let's see. So this was part of, or it was a parcel next to our deal of the week a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if this sold along with it. It was off market at that point, but the seller wanted to sell it. But this, I'm not sure if the buyer that bought that property bought this one as well. This is a deal we currently have an LOI signed on. We're trying to get the offer finalized. So once we have news on that, this might end up being a deal of the week. I also might look to, we actually have possibly pretty favorable terms on this. So we might actually do this one ourselves, but we'll see. Let's see. So this is another one deal I've presented, back in December as a deal of the week. This one's still available where you can get a loan on this existing house. Um, and this is Northwest Boise too, so we could add 5 like higher end homes on here and profit really well on there. And then we still have some Garden City deals. So some of these deals, this deal is no longer on the market, but it's probably still available. And then this was our deal of the week last week. I think it's still available. But Garden City is a pretty exciting area. There's a ton of development going. There's a lot of old mobile home parks there that are kind of about once a month we see a new um, you know mobile home or an old mobile home park go up for sale that ends up at some point getting sold and at some point getting redeveloped. So Garden City is super exciting on the redevelopment side. So I think, the last 15 years it's come a long way, but in the next 20 years, we're really going to see it's going to be, I think, one of the coolest places to live in the country, much less the valley. So let's see. I think that's all I have. Make sure I'm not missing anything. The there hasn't been a lot of smaller deals that have come on the market. We had a couple like at the very beginning of the year, the first couple weeks, or I guess the end of January. And those went pending pretty quickly. But since then, in the last like I think 2 or 3 weeks, we haven't really seen these single family lot splits. So this one on Sumac is still available. This is one where you could actually, if you bought it and lived in the house, you could actually do this for under 100,000 out of pocket, which is pretty fantastic. And then also, profit almost 200,000 from it. So this is actually a really good deal for somebody that wanted to like just buy a house and live in it, and doesn't maybe have as much capital as some of these other deals take. This is one of the few that I've ever seen or analyzed that would take under 100,000 capital. Most of the time it's 150,000 plus. So that's a good opportunity if they're going to live in it. A little over 150,000 if they're going to buy it as an investment property and not live in it. And then a little less profit. I think that's about it. So if anybody's interested, whether you're watching this now or watching the replay, if you're interested in some of these, multi-unit properties, they take a little bit more capital. Typically, if you're looking at, one of these bigger deals, you're usually looking at 500,000 plus in capital. But then you can see like this one is a good example where, this takes a little bit of time from start to finish. You're probably 5 years when it's multi-phases like this. But theoretically, you're looking at, 2.5 million in profit on a deal like this. And really, like you probably have your capital back within a few years, and the rest of it is just, it's gravy on top of that. So probably within 3 years, you get all your capital back. After that first or second phase is done, and then it's just profits. You just build them and sell them as you go. And you have multi years of, bringing in a ton of income. So, um, so Yeah, this could be a good deal, and this could be a good deal. This would probably be pretty similar to this. I think less units, but I think um, profitability wise per unit, probably pretty close. Similar area of town. Okay, that's all I got for now. If anybody has any questions, feel free to speak up.